Hey guys, UC here. Welcome back to Unqualified Critics. So today is kind of the money episode. There are two big money stories. Arcade1up with the Infinity game table just hit a huge milestone on Kickstarter. Lots of money going there. And iiRcade just raised $5.5 million, putting a stake in the ground that they're here to stay and that they're serious. So let's talk about both of those things. And there's also a big new game that's just been announced that iiRcade has picked up. So first off, let's talk about this $5.5 million. So I myself have raised venture capital before for my companies, and whereas some of the YouTubers in this space, have worked for startups, I myself have started startups. So get dunked on. But in all seriousness, I do have a lot of thoughts on venture capital, and I could probably talk 20, 30 minutes on this topic. I suspect I'd put a lot of you guys to sleep. So I'm just going to give you an overview of what I think this is about. $5.5 million is serious money, but this is what's called a seed investment. This is a beginning stage investment. iiRcade has raised this money before they've even launched their product into the market. That's an incredible feat, and Jong and his team deserve a lot of credit. Generally, if you do that, you've got pretty good history personally that you've been successful with some different endeavors, and you've got a good network, because it's very hard to just raise money out of the blue with that. Normally, you raise money, you say, look at these results. We're growing this fast. We're selling this many units. We just need money to give us fuel so that we can power this rocket ship and make even more money. Well, Jong doesn't have that because they've not released yet. Now, I'm sure they have some early markers of success, the Kickstarter and things. But to raise $5.5 million, you got to go beyond that if you're doing it before you launch the product. So congrats to them. But I will tell you, VC money is not always great for a product category. VC money, what is that? So just stands for venture capital, and it's just a fancy way of saying some business that invests in other businesses trying to get a really, really big return. And you'd say, yeah, but isn't everybody trying to get, a really good return on their investment? But VCs are different. They take a lot of risk. The old famous adage is they invest in 10 companies and they only expect one to pay off, but that one is going to pay off so much that the other 9 companies that went out of business don't matter. They just made a crap load of money, right? They invested in Facebook, but they also invested in 9 duds, but Facebook made them, God money. So it's okay that the other 9 duds are out there. That's what they say. The reality is most VCs actually underperform the general stock market. So you and I, as just a lame regular guy investing money in the market, if you invest in just the broad market and don't pick individual stocks, you will do better on average than your average venture capitalist, which is kind of funny, but that's a topic for another day. So when VCs come in, they're looking to pump a bunch of money in and result in huge growth or blow the company up trying. Now, every VC is different. They're not all super vulture like that, but let's say these guys are super vulture. Well, they put $5.5 million in. They've got milestones that iiRcade has to hit. And if iiRcade doesn't hit, there could be consequences. Some VCs will push for breaking up a company and selling it for pennies to just get it over with after a few years if the growth isn't there. So it absolutely raises the stakes for success, but it also gives iiRcade a lot of resources to do what with? What are they going to do with that money? Well, that's the big question. And really, we don't know. The press release behind this fundraise doesn't give us a lot of info. This is private information for the company and between them and their investor, but we can sure as hell speculate. And I don't know. I have a few thoughts. So one, I'm sure a lot of this will go into marketing. They've got to get the word out about iiRcade. I still think it's a pretty narrow band of folks. You and I know what it is, the people that follow them on Facebook, but they're not doing serious marketing yet. They're going to have to do that. The next is they've invested a lot of money and time into recruiting game titles and game publishers, which is crucial. That's always got to be the first step. But now they got to figure out a way to get this to the public. And are they going to rely just on Amazon sales, or are they going to really hustle and get this into Walmarts and Targets and stuff? If they want to be the next Xbox, PlayStation, if they want to be that level of size, but an arcade format, right? And we know this is different than a console, but it's this console model. They sell you the arcade, and then you're going to buy the games over time, and then they're going to make a bunch of money from software sales. Well, if we're going to do that, honestly, end of the day, they've got to get into Walmart and Target and Best Buy and everywhere else eventually. So do they hire a team of people to help manage that? Another thing is when they sell through Amazon, are they going to distribute it themselves? In other words, they list it on Amazon, you buy it, and iiRcade ships it to you? Or are they going to distribute it through Amazon, and then Amazon takes a bigger cut? A lot of the traditional arcade makers the people that sell the skee ball machines and the big arcades that you'd buy or play at Dave and Buster's, those aren't bought and sold directly. Those are bought and sold through distributors, and distributors push up the prices a lot. Well, iiRcade, to hit the price point that they're planning, they can't work through distributors. So maybe they're going to spend some of this money to build up their own distributing capability and make this available to the public, and then they ship it to you directly. I mean, that's a big thing. If you're going to sell thousands of cabinets, that alone is its own business. So I could go on, but basically $5.5 million bucks. It's great news for iiRcade. Congrats to them. The fact they were able to raise this money before even going to market is awesome. They probably gave up a pretty big chunk of the company to do it. I'm somewhat averse to raising money unless you have a lot of revenue to back it up, because then you get to kind of dictate the terms a little bit, right? Like, think about when you watch Shark Tank. If somebody walks in there and they have almost no revenue, they got to take whatever deal the Shark Tank guys give them. But if they walk in there and they got a crap load of revenue, they can be pickier. They probably have more people interested. So that's my view of it. But at the same time, getting a hardware company off the ground is something I've never done. Software you can do for less money. The fact that these guys are dealing with hardware, I mean, it does cost a lot of money to buy these parts in bulk and assemble them and get them shipped out. So I can't criticize that. And I do tip the cap to them for getting $5.5 million bucks raised. Next up, not quite that much, but nearly $1 million as of this recording has been raised on Kickstarter for the Infinity Game Table. And some of you might be hyped for this. I think most of us kind of have either, we're not interested, or let's wait and see how the quality is. I'm in that wait and see how the quality is camp. But let's remember, this product isn't just for us. I mean, this is for the broader market of all those people, all those families who play board games and digitizing them. But it is expensive. And the question will be, is it worth 600 bucks to play digital board games? We know they'll have traditional video games too, at least likely. It has been hinted by John D. But we don't know what that looks like, and clearly the main killer app on this is board games. Is it worth $600 to play those board games? I don't know. I will tell you though, sourcing a 24-inch and especially a 32-inch touchscreen monitor, and that's the key, touchscreen. Yeah, you can get a 32-inch LCD monitor really cheap, but try and get a 32-inch touchscreen LCD monitor cheap. You can't. These are expensive products. They're specialty products. Go online and look and see what these parts cost. They're a lot of money. So I do think these prices are reasonable to get the touchscreen and the LCD monitor. I want to see, will the LCD monitor be of good enough quality that you can really gather around the table and all play it together and have a good time? We'll see. It does have tactile feedback, by the way, which is kind of neat. Yeah, I don't know. I think this will broaden their market opportunity, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a different person buying this than the arcade product. So Arcade1up is growing aggressively, almost like they're venture back themselves. I don't think they are, but maybe Scott, their CEO, is cracking that whip. Man, we need to grow fast. We need to get into all these different categories. I wonder if it's not too much too quick. There's still a lot of room for improvement in the arcade space. There's still a lot of games to release there. And this kind of takes the eye off the ball of recreating that game room. It's still a game, I know, but it's just different. So I don't know. I'm really curious to see if this is successful. But the fact that they've already raised almost $1 million with a product with a rather premium price point, to me is a good sign that I'm off base and it will be really successful. Last thing I want to cover, there's a brand new game coming to iiRcade. It's called Dead Cells. Now, maybe you're like me and you've never heard of Dead Cells. This is a console game. It's a Metroidvania, a two-dimensional platformer type game. And I have been saying for a while, we should see these 2D, this resurgence of 2D indie type games. They ought to be playable on arcades. I mean, these are arcade kind of games in the sense that a regular joystick will work great here. A few buttons, you're good to go. You don't need the fancy modern analog controls of a console. So this game hit consoles 2 years ago. It got a 9.5 out of 10 from IGN, so very elite score. And iiRcade just locked them up in a deal so that you can buy this game on the iiRcade. Now, this is going to, again, just like everything I said with Arcade1up, iiRcade has one product. So that one product will play both modern games and retro games. And I think it's a good idea probably to cast a wide net. I wonder, though, will people that play modern games, will they buy into the iiRcade? Because think about it, if you're a fan of Dead Cells, you can play this soon on your phone, but you can already play it on your console. Are you really willing to pay $600 to play this in a stand-up arcade format? I like that idea, but I'm just wondering if other people like that idea. I know who's willing to spend $600 for sure, though, and those are retro gamers. There's no question. So I think iArcade is probably hoping you buy the cabinet, get the retro games, get the retro artwork with like the Double Dragon edition, but then maybe once you have it, you'll start buying more modern games on it, and that might work. I'm curious to see if it will work, but I will give them a lot of credit. They aren't just taking, they're running an Android chipset, or they're running Android operating system on their chipset, and their chipset is basically like a mid-range smartphone level of power, right, give or take. Well, what they could do is just open it up to all games on the Android App Store. It'd be a terrible idea. People would have a really bad experience with that. The controls wouldn't be optimized and all this. So, what I'm glad to see they're doing is instead they've created their own App Store and they're working directly with these game developers and publishers to make sure that these games work great on the platform and it's not just flooded with a bunch of junk. And Dead Cells, even though I've not played it, it is very clearly not junk. So lots of hats off to iArcade and Arcade1up for those milestones. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll talk to you later. Hey, consider hitting that join button to support the channel, and thanks so much for watching.